right now. Your local news at 5.
Dozens of Hanford workers have been checked for chemical vapor exposure recently, but that evaluation may not be enough.
And new information tonight on the bee attack in Pasco that forced a woman to put down her chihuahua. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Meredith Boggs.
I'm Shane Ettinger. We begin tonight with a closer look at how Hanford workers are medically evaluated when they report symptoms of exposure to chemical vapors.
Jane Sander joins us now to explain the process and why it's not enough to find signs of exposure. Jane.
Shane and Meredith, when a worker feels common symptoms of chemical vapor exposure like nasal irritation or burning eyes, they go straight to HPMC Hanford Occupational Health Services. These symptoms sound startling to many people, but most of the workers get sent right back to work after the routine evaluation. Burning eyes, nasal and throat irritation, cough, and a strange taste in the mouth. These are some of the symptoms the Hanford site medical provider says workers are reporting. When a worker feels like this and thinks they were exposed to chemical vapors, they get an evaluation at HPMC.
Looking in the nose, looking in the throat, looking in the eyes, ears, listening to the lungs, and then determine if any other tests have to be done. Usually they end up getting a chest x-ray or sometimes a pulmonary function test if they're complaining about any difficulty breathing or wheezing or coughing.
But Rock says there typically isn't enough exposure to cause anything they can actually see.
We don't see a nasal irritation, we don't see red throat, we don't hear any wheezes in the lungs or anything. It's pretty rare to hear that. So it's usually the reporting by the patient worker as to whether there's any symptoms or not. Symptoms are things that people report, signs are things that we can see.
HPMC says it's difficult to know what chemicals workers were exposed to because there's only a few chemicals they can test for, like mercury and lead.
There's a misconception that you can come in and get tested for the gases that you get exposed to, and that's just not the case. I hope someday we'll have that, but it's not available to us. Medical science hasn't developed that.
Rock tells me it's largely up to the worker when they go back to work after they report exposure symptoms.
How do you feel about going back to work? Do you feel up to it? Do you feel okay? And a large percentage usually says, yeah, I'm fine, I can go back to work. Some will say, I'm feeling kind of gimpy or maybe dizzy or something like that. And so we'll take them off work and then we have them come back a few days later or the next day or whenever is appropriate. That's a clinical judgment.
When I asked if there could be long-term health effects from chemical vapor exposure, Rock said he didn't know.
We wouldn't anticipate there would be, but we can't say for sure that there aren't. It's like any exposure to anything, driving out behind a diesel truck on the highway.
When I asked just how common these reports of symptoms of exposure are, Rock said it ranges from 1 to up to 14 workers coming in at a time for evaluations. I'm told if workers have ongoing symptoms, they are referred to see their own physician. Live in the studio, Jane Sander, NBC Right Now.